Today I want to talk about my Turo rental experience with everybody. I've been asked a lot about this. It's going to be pretty informal. I'm just going to talk about how it went and everything. So if I miss anything, please leave questions down below, but I'm going to try to pack all the information in here really dense. Like everybody, I wanted to find a way to make a little extra money on the side where I didn't have to do a whole lot of work, some kind of, small side income. And of course, a lot of people look to Turo, and Teslas are kind of perfect for doing Turo. And a lot of things just kind of lined up for me where I had the opportunity to buy a standard range Model 3 from Tesla. I mean, I just ordered it and hoped it would show up. I also had free supercharging miles, so I could advertise that on my Turo listing as a perk saying, when you rent this car, you do not have to pay for charging at all. It's totally free. So that's a perk for the renter. I figure it saves them some money, it attracts them to me, and then I can bump up the price just a little bit because I have that extra perk. And Teslas are super easy to remotely give access to really anybody. You don't even have to be anywhere near the car. You can just go into your app, add their email, and boom, they can access the car. You don't have to be anywhere near them. So with all of these thoughts in mind, I was like, hey, this seems easy enough. I know there's maybe some liability, whatever, but I don't even have to be there. I will keep it parked at my work in Ann Arbor. It's relatively close to an airport, which is huge for Turo. I am not going to offer pickup. I don't have time. See, this is where my first mistake comes in. I was just too busy. I work a full-time job. I do YouTube. I do spend a lot of time on YouTube. I also have a family, a wife and 2 kids that I spend a lot of time with, which is great, but then it leaves not that much time for Turo. Now, at the time, and it did kind of work out that way, I thought, hey, with this remote access, I can just text these people and say, all right, the car's right here, pick it up. And actually that did work pretty well. Now at the time, if you remember, Teslas were really hard to get from anywhere, from Tesla or used. Prices were skyrocketing in July and August. And I had just put in that order for the standard range Model 3. I think I put it in May or even March or something like that. And it was, we're at end of July and still nothing until Tesla finally is like, hey, they let me know there's a Model 3 here for you if you want to take it. It was actually one of the first when Tesla started really pumping out standard range Model 3s again. I got really lucky, probably because I ordered so early, but a lot of people were waiting. It was just base white on white. I wanted white with black interior to make it cheaper, but it's all they had, so I took it. Of course, I didn't pay for enhanced autopilot or any of those things. And I thought, hey, these cars don't need oil changes. They don't need brakes. There's really not much maintenance. Let's just throw it on Turo and see what happens. And surprisingly enough, I'm happy to report it actually went really well for the time I had the car. See, I got the car and I put the listing up that night. And before I even went to bed that night, I had my first booking and I was really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually going to work. People are actually going to rent this car. See, my biggest fear was I would have this car that had like a $700 a month car payment. We'll go over all the finances in detail, and nobody would rent it. And then I'm stuck with this payment and then I'd have to resell the car. But again, at the time, Teslas were really hard to get. So in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if this doesn't work, I'm just going to resell it. Someone will buy it for close to what I paid anyway. And I kind of have that little blanket of security. So I did a very small down payment on it. I only put $5,000 down and I financed the rest. Finance rates were still pretty low at that time. They hadn't exploded like they have today. But after that first rental, I was so excited. And fast forward to the next day, less than 24 hours later, a second rental occurred and it was huge. It was like, I think 2 weeks or something they wanted the car. And I was like, this is it. This is it. I don't have to do anything. I'll just have this car parked there and people will come pick it up and I got to make sure it's clean and that's it. Like, who cares? And I'm not going to lie. It actually, for the most part, did work out that way. Now, see, I only ended up keeping the car for about 2 months before all the thoughts started to creep into my head, all the negatives about what if, and that's never, the best way to run a business or take chances and try to make money. But I just couldn't help it. I could not get the thought out of my head. What if somebody, I'm in Michigan, so they could easily rent this car and go to Canada. There's nothing wrong with that. What if they go to Canada and it gets towed and impounded? Do I have to now go to Canada and pick up the car? I probably do. What if they get a flat somewhere? I mean, it has Tesla roadside, but do I have to do that? Do I have to go help them? What if, like, worst case scenario, they get in some terrible accident and like they die in the car? I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's possible, right? Or you kill somebody else in a car accident or something. And all these things, I couldn't get them off my mind. Even though at the time things were going perfectly. They were going almost as well as I thought they would. But of course, it was a little more time consuming than I had thought. See, my first renter knew nothing about Tesla, which I think is awesome. I love to talk Tesla and teach people about Tesla when they want to learn. And so I met with that first renter. We talked for almost an hour, I want to say 45 minutes or so, just about everything. And I was more than happy to do it. But again, it was time. My wife was actually picking me up because it was the first day I had to drive that car to work to drop it off. And then my wife came to pick me up because of course I didn't have a car and she's just waiting for me, which she didn't mind, but it's just, more time you're spending on something else. And they treated it really well. I had the charging cables in the car. They brought it back pretty clean. I still had to clean it, of course, but for the most part, the car was in pretty pristine condition. And I was like, okay, let's just run this through a touchless car wash. I'll make sure, the inside is disinfected or whatever. They have all these rules on Turo. Wipe everything down, make sure it looks good and smells nice, and that's it. So in general, it went pretty well. Now let me get into some specifics here. Let's talk cost. I think that's probably the first thing everybody wants to know is money. That's the whole reason you're doing it, right? So I've written everything down here. I had 6 renters in my ownership of the car. So the first month I had 3 renters, and the second month I had 3 renters. And to be honest, neither of those were really a full month because I got it in the beginning of August and those were 3 renters, and then I sold it at the end of September and that was 3 renters. So I probably could have had 4 a month. It seemed like the car was booking like crazy. So let's see what I paid for the car. So I paid $52,874.84. That is everything. That is taxes and fees and delivery. That is everything for a standard range Model 3. It's actually called rear wheel drive Model 3. It used to be standard range. I'm just being old and calling it the old names, but that's what I paid. And since then, the price has actually dropped. It's actually $42,990. Of course, that's before the taxes and everything, but it was 47 something before. So it's dropped about $5,000 since then. That's one of the big reasons I sold, but let's keep going through the money. So as for costs, that was really my biggest cost. Other than that, I bought some floor mats for the car because it doesn't come with floor mats, and I bought some cleaning supplies, just some stuff I could spray off, disinfectants and things. And I had to pay for, I think I had 6 guests, so I think I paid for 5 car washes or something, about $8 each, and that's really all my expenses that I had. Remember, supercharging is free. Of course, the renter would pay for that, but still, there was no cost to them for that and no cost to me. Of course, I didn't need tires. They did put a decent amount on. I think the car ended with around 8,000 or 9,000 miles, something like that, because one person rented it and just driving everywhere, which, that's what it's for. I don't care. But yeah, they were driving it all over the place. So let's talk income. My first month, I made $740 exactly. And my car payment was, I don't remember exactly, right around $700 to $710. And so I made a profit the first month of $30. And I was very happy with that. Yeah, it's only 30 bucks, but it was my first month. The car wasn't even listed for the full month. And it was 3 super easy rents. I basically did nothing besides after it was dropped off, I took it to the touchless car wash, got the bugs off the bumper, and that was it, and cleaned the interior. That's all I had to do. It took me, I don't know, maybe half hour, 45 minutes per ride, and I was done. So I was like, okay, I have a car, this rear wheel drive Model 3. It's at this point for the first month, it's essentially a free car. It's being paid for by this service. I don't need the car anyway, so that's awesome. All the renters returned it with tons of mileage, tons of range. There was a supercharger nearby. Of course, it's free, so they don't care. And they all returned it, every renter I had, with so much charge, I never needed to actually take it myself to get it charged. So the second month, again, keep in mind, it's not even a full month, but it was most of September. I made $811.86. So again, I'm estimating a $710 car payment. After that, and this includes insurance too. I know I'm just saying car payment, but like all of that together, I made $101. So I was making a profit on this car, and in the middle of September, I was excited, but that's kind of when all the thoughts started to creep in. I saw the profit, but I saw it wasn't stellar money. This isn't gonna change your life or anything. And imagine the car does get in even a very small accident and it's out of commission for a short amount of time. Now you're not making money. You're still making a car payment, obviously, but you're not making money on it. So with news of inflation and rising interest rates, my backup plan of being able to sell the car for close to what I paid, I felt was quickly evaporating. Now at this time, Teslas were still pretty hard to get. They hadn't really, I don't know if they even did a single rate raise at that time or not, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I was like, you know what? I think interest rates are going to go up. I think the auto market and the resale values are really going to tumble. So I'm going to see like what Vroom will offer. That's the easiest. It's probably not the best I could do, but let's see. So I checked Vroom, Carvana, and Vroom was really good. I did end up selling it to them, but I did lose money. And you want to make money. You don't want to lose money, right? See, I'm not as lucky as the Model S and X buyers that recently saw a price cut and then bought their cars after that. In fact, if I want to buy most new cars this year, I'm paying twice as much as I would pre-pandemic. Now, maybe on a normal year, that wouldn't be such a big deal, but our portfolios have been getting hammered for over a year now. So until things get normal, people are looking for ways to make more money, and maybe you can't put your only Tesla on Turo because you use it for daily driving, but there are always ways to protect your wealth and get back what you should have had. You can invest in an asset class that's outpaced the S&P 500 by more than 2x over the last 26 years. Even the non-stop bull market of the last decade. I'm talking about the art market. This market is nearly impossible to access, but now you can access it in minutes without needing millions of dollars thanks to Masterworks, today's sponsor, who is helping me with my Turo losses. Masterworks paid out tens of millions of dollars in total to their investors last year, and that's not a one-off. Every Masterworks exit to date has returned a profit to investors like you. Just take a look at this performance. The results speak for themselves. With 630,000 plus users, Masterworks offerings have sold out in minutes. They even had to make a waitlist for new users, but of course I got special access for my followers to skip it, so click that link in the description right now. So thank you to Masterworks for helping me recoup a very small, tiny part of my loss here. So what did I lose after buying a Model 3 and then selling it? Let me tell you my selling cost. So I sold the Model 3 for just about exactly $48,000 to Vroom. They were by far the best offer. So I went forward with Vroom, and that was actually super easy. They literally came and picked it up, and like that was it. Like it was so easy. I couldn't believe it. And the money was in my bank account in like 2 days or something. So that was great. But even though a big fat check came to my bank account, overall with all expenses, everything included, I lost $3,318.08. Oh my gosh, that hurts to say out loud. But you know what? You don't take risks, you can never gain anything. So yeah, that was pretty lame that I lost that much money. But overall, I wanted to share this with everybody because I didn't actually have any real negative experiences besides losing that large amount of money. But I really do feel if I had the time to keep up with Turo and I stuck with it, I do think this car could have actually paid itself off and been profitable in the long run. Now, it's hard to say because, of course, over a year, the rentals are going to fluctuate. You probably won't get as many rentals in the winter versus summer, but I gotta say, talking to the customers I had, only one of them I think was on vacation. The rest of them were in town either visiting family or because it was where their second house was and they just didn't have a car in the area at the time. One person was checking out a school in the local area. So most of the renters were actually business people, either there for business or some type of appointment or something, rather than, oh yeah, we're just in Michigan for vacation. So I don't think those types of rentals would slow down as much in the winter, but of course I can't say for sure. So what was the worst thing that happened? Really nothing that bad. The worst thing that happened is one of the wheels got a curb rash on it, which I 100% expected all of them to get it, and it's totally just cosmetic, so I didn't really mind. But my final renter, they did curb rash it pretty bad, where a small piece of the sidewall was damaged, and you gotta be careful with that stuff. And when it was my last renter, I was like, you know what, this is exactly what I'm thinking. What if I had another rental lined up right after that, and I don't have time to get the tire changed? Am I just gonna let them take it and hope the tire is good? Well, I just let Vroom take it. Of course, they're gonna check it out. It's not my responsibility. They did their walk around and they said, hey, this looks great. So it was a very minor damage, but it's still something you have to consider, especially if you're gonna let someone take that car. So these are the questions I was asked the most about this whole experience. So I wanna go over how Turo works and kind of give you all the details there, because I can then point to this, and you know, if you're curious, you can listen to this. So you set all your parameters, such as like allowed mileage, how long they can book the car, rental cost per day, and all of that. That's all totally up to you. So if you want to do another car on the side, just maybe rent it once a month or something, you can totally do that and set really strict parameters. While it's rented, the car is covered under Turo's insurance, and you decide all that with Turo, how much you're going to pay them, how much they're going to cover, etc. Deductible and what is covered is totally customizable. Turo takes this money out of the rental fee every trip, so what's deposited into your bank account is what you end up getting. The more money you keep from a trip, the less money is spent on insurance, and the less Turo will cover, of course, which will also bring a higher deductible. I luckily didn't need to make use of the insurance at all during my time renting, so I was really happy not to have to deal with that. I don't know if it'll be good. Looking at other videos, I've heard sometimes it's awesome, other times it's a nightmare, so results may vary. When not on Turo, your personal insurance company covers the car. Many insurance companies charge an extra fee if you use Turo, so make sure you're totally covered. You definitely don't want to lie to your insurance company about this. They seem really picky about it, even though it's under Turo's insurance when it's being rented, so I don't know why they'd care, but I'm sure they have their reasons. If you're driving the car, say when I went to get it washed or whatever, then it was under my personal insurance that I was paying for. When someone wants to book, you get a message from them with some details about their trip, and you can choose to accept it. I accepted every request I received. From there, you can chat with the renter, and I used to send a template with a message with some information about the car, how to charge, how the keys worked, and any other information I thought they needed to know just to use the car daily. I could also block off any days if I needed to use the car. I could turn it off for a month or a week or whatever I wanted, so it's still my car if I don't want to rent it out. So the reason I chose a Model 3 is mostly because I'm very familiar with them, but it's a great Turo car. You don't actually have to be there for pickup. I think 5 or 4 out of my 6 rentals, I wasn't even there. Me and the renter would just talk over the app about an hour before the trip started, I would give them access to the Tesla app. They can then go up to the car, unlock it, get in there, they can pair their phone as phone key, and it's just like it's their car. And now they didn't have it back then, but now they have the cloud profiles on Teslas. So a couple of my renters actually did own a Tesla and they were in town and just wanted another Tesla to use. And so they could have actually loaded their personal profile into this one when they got in, and their mirrors, their seat, all of that would have been customized to them from their personal car, which is awesome. So once they got to the car, I had the key car waiting in there. They could, pair and do phone key. And when they dropped off the car, I had them just leave the key in there, and then I could just remove their trip access. That's it. I could just remove their email. I mean, it took 2 seconds and then they couldn't access the car anymore. So my general thoughts on the whole experience, I do think this is a viable thing to at least attempt, especially because I had the free supercharger miles. I think that was a huge perk. Of course, people would pay for their own fuel anyway, but I could advertise that and then kind of capture some of that savings in the rental price. A Tesla is a fantastic car to do this with. I know there are several people on Twitter that have multiple Teslas, like 6 or 15 of them. And there are some problems, of course, if you rent out that much, you're gonna have some accidents and some weird things happening. But again, my experience was great. Everybody returned the car super clean. I couldn't believe it. I thought the car was going to be just destroyed when I got it back. And it was like really nice every single time. So if you have the time to do something like this, again, I do think it's viable thing to attempt. In this market, it's not as secure as it was back then. Again, I kind of had that security blanket of like, oh, cars are really hard to get in general right now, especially Teslas, so I could just flip it if this is not working out. Now, if I still had the car today, I'm pretty sure I can guarantee I would be stuck with it in terms of I would not be able to sell it for anywhere near what I paid. I actually tried to get a quote from Vroom on our Model X. I just check all the time for fun, and they said they're not buying Teslas right now. So I think they got a little screwed on my Model 3 I sold them. So they're not buying any Teslas. They won't even give you an offer, which I find so strange. But yeah, I wouldn't have that security blanket. I would be stuck with it. But at the same time, I do genuinely believe that I would still be getting a solid stream of renters. It pretty much never stopped. I never stopped getting bookings. I had several that were well ahead of time, and I had several that would come in like the day before, and they'd be like, oh, yep, I'm gonna rent the car, and I just give them app access. I don't have to be there, and it was perfect. With the curbed wheel, a lot of people asked me, did I charge the person, go through insurance? Honestly, I didn't. It wasn't that bad, and I definitely could have put a claim in and took pictures and been like, oh, look, he damaged my car, and gone through insurance and all that. But I knew going into it, that was something I expected to happen. This is not a car. This is not a baby. This is like a tool for people to rent. And it's a rental car. It's going to get some bumps and bruises. I really wasn't worried about it. I didn't want to like ruin someone's day over a little scratch on the wheel, especially when I know it's going to keep happening. Overall, my experience was very positive, but for me in my life right now, it's really just not for me. But if you have a big fat deposit sitting around and you have the time to manage something like this, I do think it is a viable thing to at least attempt. Of course, with these things always comes risk, but yeah, when you don't put yourself out there, then you can't really gain anything, including just like the knowledge of the experience. So I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions, leave those down below, and you will see me in the next video.